Joining us in studio is Abbie Goldberg, professor of psychology at Clark University and a renowned expert in the area of lesbian and gay parenting. She's also the author of Lesbian and Gay Parents, Research on the Family Life Cycle. And joining us on the phone is Tom McClusky, Vice President of Government Affairs for the Family Research Council. Can you hear me okay, Tom?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
So last week we learned that Prop 8 was overturned in California by Judge Vaughn Walker. Tom, were you thrilled with this decision or just very happy?
Well, actually neither.
Neither.
We thought that the opinion of this one judge should not overrule the votes of over 7 million California citizens.
Mm-hmm. Well, so Abbie, let me go to you. That argument that Tom is making has been made a number of times, which is the will of the people has been overturned. The counter argument, which I've taken to heart because it seems to make sense to me, is when we're talking about cases of basic civil rights being violated, you can't just put that up to a vote, right? I mean, that's why we have an independent judiciary to decide, if this is a vote that would violate the Bill of Rights, for example, we can't just put that to a vote. Where do you come down on that?
Yeah, I mean, I would concur with that the issue of equal rights of civil liberties should not be something that should be left up to, popular vote, but it's rather something that should rest on principle. And, in my opinion, it shouldn't even rest on research. We shouldn't have to prove that a class of people is as good as another class of people in order for them to have a right that should be granted to them automatically.
So, Tom, as part of the Family Research Council, with which you are a VP of Government Affairs for, is the objection just the so-called legal objection, which you just stated, or do you have a moral problem with gay marriage as well?
Well, there's certainly the moral problem, and a lot of that goes into the research that has shown that children are best in an environment with a mother and a father, something this judge completely just threw out.
In what sense did he throw that out?
Well, he didn't even include it and dismissed it in his judgment, in his ruling.
So you're saying that there is evidence which suggests that that kids do better when they are in a home with a male and a female parent as opposed to a gay couple. Is that right?
Well, the evidence is overwhelming. Just recently, there was even a study by Yale University that supports that belief.
And Abbie, are there those studies? What do the studies say? This is really your area of expertise.
Yeah. The body of research that, for example, the proponents of Prop 8 have relied on is a body of research that compares married, heterosexual, two-parent families and their children to single-parent families and divorced parent families. And those studies often find that children with two married, heterosexual parents do better in terms of various psychosocial outcomes compared to children of single parents and divorced parents. But there is no study that compares married heterosexual parents with children to married same-sex couples with children. So that's a big leap that I think some of these proponents are making, that can automatically be extended to same-sex couples as well. And the research that we do have that compares heterosexual married same-sex couples with children to not married but same-sex couples with children shows that these children are doing just fine emotionally and behaviorally. They don't differ in any sort of psychosocial outcome from the children of straight parents.
So when you hear, go ahead, Tom.
Those studies, though, are extremely biased. They've been thrown out. I mean, the most recent one, it didn't even have a control group. It was just a matter of asking lesbian parents, do you think you're a good parent or not?
Which study is that?
It was the most recent study, and I'm afraid I do not have it in front of me, except most of these studies have, that's the simple fact is that there are so few.
Well, the study I think you're referring to is a study that was done at University of California, San Francisco, got a lot of press. I think that's the one you're referring to. It's the longitudinal national, lesbian parent study. In fact, that study and several recent studies, you're saying that it just relied on parents' report, but it also relied on teacher reports. So teachers are a great way to provide some independent, objective data to kind of ascertain whether these children are doing well. And those teachers' reports were included in that report. And those teachers' reports showed that these children, again, did not differ in terms of behavioral or emotional outcomes from children of heterosexual parents.
So, Tom, is that the poll you're referring to? Do we just not know what poll it is you're referring to?
I do believe that was the one, and it's still just showing with no control group and simply asking then teachers or friends of these families is not a scientific poll to make.
What about it is unscientific?
You have no control group. You have no. You're not comparing it to other families, and you're talking about a very small percentage of. Well, the whole population itself is a very small percentage of homosexuals, and an even smaller population that decides to even enter civil unions or marriage or anything like that.
But Tom, because it's a small percentage, does that mean any study about it would just be inaccurate because there's not that many people to study it? That could go both ways, could it not?
Well, and this goes beyond any study as well. The right to marry is granted by the U.S. Constitution, but not the right to define marriage. And in essence, that is what is being asked here, and that is what Judge Walker tried to do.
Okay, let me, in the interest of not getting bogged down here, to me, I happen to believe that homosexuality is not a choice. Where does Family Research Council come down on that, Tom?
Well, the evidence is inconclusive on either side. So right now it's just down to personal opinion.
And what's yours?
My personal opinion is that it's inconclusive. I'm not going to answer a question yes or no when all the facts are not known.
And should that make a difference in terms of a ruling like this?
I wouldn't see why it would.
Abbie?
You mean should the matter of whether it's a choice or not a choice have any?
Does that have any legal bearing? Should it play into any of these discussions?
Should. No, I think it's completely irrelevant. Again, I really feel that these kinds of decisions should be made on, whether it's a choice or not. And there's a lot of research showing that it's not a choice, but whether it's a choice or not is irrelevant. Again, to granting certain rights that human beings should have automatically. That's what this case was all about.
Hey, Tom, go ahead, Tom.
There's already restrictions on what the definition of marriage is. Trying to redefine it is not a right.
Do you think that this type of legislation would open the door to three-way marriages or marriages between people and animals? Those are two talking points I hear.
Well, you aren't going to hear the people and animals argument from us, except there is historical evidence on other types of marriages, like polygamy. But additionally, there are restrictions that are put on marriage, and there's a reason for that. Now, here, trying to redefine marriage is it's not quite in the Constitution.
So if there were to be an amendment that wanted to redefine marriage as specifically between a man and a woman, you would also be against that, right? I mean, in the interest of just being unbiased and having the same policy about redefining things.
Well, that's not redefining marriage when you're defining it between one man and one woman.
Well,
That's
but if it were already defined that way, Abbie, would there be a need to do that again? I guess is when I think about the Defense of Marriage amendments, where it needs to be said, we will say it is between a man and a woman. If it's already defined that way, there wouldn't be a need to do it again, would there?
No, I don't think so.
So I don't understand that, Tom. Explain it to me.
I would think you'd need to explain to me how it's not defined already as between one man and one woman, beyond some usual liberal judges' rulings in a handful of states.
But this particular judge is a libertarian appointed by a Republican, right? So which liberal judge are you talking about?
Judge Walker had a personal stake in this ruling, which, the San Francisco Chronicle has even reported about, and we're the first ones to report about. So I don't think his judgment actually should be well taken on this case.
Abbie, what do you think about that? And we're speaking with Abbie Goldberg, professor of psychology at Clark University, and Tom McClusky from the Family Research Council. The argument that this particular judge was in some way biased or not capable of making a fair decision. What's your thought on that?
My opinion is that who would be impartial? If one sexual orientation is sort of on trial here, would a heterosexual judge have been impartial? I mean, it seems like a silly argument to say that because he might or might not be gay, that has some relevance in the case. Again, if he was straight and he had, argued for for proponents of Prop 8, would people have been saying, well, but he's straight, he's clearly not impartial? I don't know about that. So just because he's gay, people are sort of jumping on that. He has a lot of people.
It's not simply a sexual orientation, but when you look at his actual supposed findings, most of them are his personal opinion, and certainly not something that's found either in the Constitution or in the law.
But hold on a second, Abbie, was not the testimony that the judge was deciding the case on not presented well from those who are against the legalization of gay marriage? It was not strong evidence, and that is the evidence that the judge needs to decide on, is it not?
Yes, read the 136-page, decision from the trial, and it really outlines in kind of exquisite detail these various expert witnesses, their opinions, the data that they presented, their various qualifications. Unfortunately, for proponents of Prop 8, the data really doesn't support supporting it. I mean, it's really hard, I think, for anyone to argue reading this document how he could have possibly found for the defendants.
What do you think, Tom? I mean, did your side here in this case just blow the case?
I think the case was more or less stacked against them at the beginning. I mean, there are precedents he did not cite in his case. The overwhelming body of evidence that was presented to the judge, he completely dismissed. I mean, the ruling itself could have been written by the attorneys who are arguing to overturn Proposition 8.
I want to, in the last minute or so we have left, I want to just open up and throw out, not a monkey wrench here, but just another thought about this entire issue. Lyle Menendez of the Menendez brothers right now is serving a life sentence for killing both of his parents. Now, since he was incarcerated, he's gotten married, divorced, and remarried. So my question is, how is it that a convicted murderer can get married and that doesn't devalue marriage? And I use the term devalue because that's something I've heard from Tom's side. But a same-sex couple getting married somehow does devalue marriage. How would you react to that, Tom?
Well, should I judge the whole homosexual community on the actions of one person? Is the whole homosexual community Elton John or Perez Hilton? Of course not. So, I mean, an example here, an example there. I mean, Britney Spears or Lyle Menendez are...
Forget about Lyle Menendez specifically. Do you see where I'm going with this, Abbie?
Yeah.
If a convicted murderer is allowed to marry and divorce as many times as he wants, what does it mean that a homosexual couple is not allowed to do that, but this convicted murderer is?
Well, and sort of, is the value of marriage so high? If many people have said, straight people are doing just as good a job screwing up marriage as, gay people could ever do. But, the fact is, and I'll just put this out there, is that, there's a lot of data that suggests that in the countries where same-sex marriage has been introduced, in Massachusetts, we've had marriage rights extended to same-sex couples since 2003. There have been no changes in marriage rates or divorce rates in heterosexual couples. There's just a continuation of existing trends. So we have the data that actually supports that there is no effect on the institution of marriage. These fears have really not come to pass.
Tom, any response? And we just have about 30 seconds left here.
There has also been overwhelming evidence on the other side that shows that such relationships not only affect marriage, but can affect other heterosexual marriage or partnerships as well. So,
what data is that? Because I've looked at data from the Netherlands and Massachusetts.
Well, I do know that, off the top of my head, I do know that Stanley Kurtz has put together quite a body of evidence showing that in the Netherlands that such cases are like this. So I think right now it's just a matter of dueling facts.
Well, we will do the research and we will present all of the evidence. I want to thank both of our guests. On the phone, Tom McClusky, Vice President of Government Affairs for the Family Research Council, and in studio, Abbie Goldberg, Professor of Psychology at Clark University, renowned expert in the area of lesbian and gay parenting, also the author of the book, Lesbian and Gay Parents, Research on the Family Life Cycle. Thanks to both for being here and for calling in today.
All right, thank you.